sometimes you see something on the internet and you just kind of go, huh, okay. And then you scroll down and you look at the comments and you realize that other people are living in a completely different reality than you.
Welcome, everybody. My name's Henry Galley.
And my name's Addison Peacock.
And we are not alive.
Kind of bad taste for you to talk about not being alive when so many people are dead in the world, Henry.
And one of those people is the unfortunate, tragic hero who lives a brief life of 2 panels in what has turned out to inexplicably be the most controversial comic of 2026 so far. This is the story of Easy Pickings by Moy Hiram.
This was such an interesting kind of microcosm of what happens when something made for like an audience with a certain sensibility finds, like, for lack of a better word, regular people.
You've already seen it. It is a comic with a very basic bait and switch premise of the couple who saw you across the bar and liked your vibe.
They like your vibe.
And the twist is that they turn out to be a werewolf and a vampire who have eaten the person they were flirting with. I think we have seen this in different variations since the beginning of fiction itself. I was so shocked to see that, by and large, the people of the comments on both Reddit and its post on the artist formerly known as Twitter was just apoplectic rage.
Completely, like, furious. It genuinely took me aback. You messaged me and you said, hey, go look at this and read the comments for a little bit. And I saw a few that were kind of, I got, because I think when I first saw it, I think what I wrote back to you was like, no! Because it's a dark joke, and it's the sort of thing that makes you're supposed to, I believe, kind of elicit like an oh no, and then maybe you feel kind of guilty for laughing, or like, that's it. And I never would have thought about this comic again if it weren't for seeing these comments, because they made me feel legitimately like I was losing my mind, or like maybe make me question, I'm like, am I so desensitized to like horror and like dark themes and stuff that this just didn't even register to me?
To be fair, Addison would probably be more desensitized than most people, given that she is literally one of the writers for the kill count on Dead Meat, so does have to look at a lot of fictitious people being murdered in various gnarly ways.
Even before I did that, I've been a lifelong horror fan. We've talked about how I love a lot of horror that has cannibalism stuff in it. I also love a lot of vampire and werewolf horror, particularly vampire horror, but Ginger Snaps is one of my favorite movies. All of these, involving varying degrees of people eating, and often involving varying degrees of like queer characters doing the people eating, sometimes of other queer characters. Great recent example is the Interview with the Vampire Show. A lot of my perspective on this is coming not just from being a horror fan, but from being a queer woman. I am a woman who dates women in the world.
That is an important piece of context, and
yes.
because it will come up. So we had a few comments on this thing that I think were taking a pretty reasonable perspective on it. People doing the standard like, oh, I feel bad for the girl.
I think that is like one part of the intended cocktail of emotions to be experienced is my guess, at least. It's like oh no.
And other people have experienced what is probably more our speed and the speed of our audience here on this channel with comments like, this would work on me. I would let them eat me. And then other people right below that person saying, I gotta start going to the bars, heart emoticon. And there are at least a few lesbians who would find this still romantic. I actually know several. If you're a lesbian who would find this romantic, please sound off in the comments about it. You're underrepresented in these comment sections.
Seriously.
And there's another one on here that a person said, free drink and I get eaten out, sign my ass up. And some people sort of like talking to the artist and saying, oh, I love this, and like, more of your comments like this. And we'll get to that later, but while I did want to kind of give this platform for some of the more positive comments here, it is worth saying these do not represent the majority of them and the kind of general tone.
Also, like, I have no strong feelings about this artist. I have no personal investment in them as a person or an artist. It's more just like the principle of the thing and the sort of genuinely jarring disconnect between our experience of seeing this and then seeing what the kind of apparent consensus was around it.
Yeah, it was genuinely like having like a camera flash about an inch away from your eyes, and you just kind of like, oh, what's happening? Addison, would you like to take us through this sort of next few comments, which each of them their files are labeled as projection, because there are a few different types of weird comments on this otherwise like kind of pretty anodyne milquetoast dark comedy comic, and one of them is people who apply a lot of kind of headcanons to the character that gets eaten.
/ have projected a lot of their own, like, I think, dating woes onto her. Cannot emphasize enough that the comic that we showed on screen is the entirety of the comic. She has no dialogue. She has 2 panels. Okay, we had when someone finally wants to interact with you, but you become food.
That feel when.
We've got poor girl. The fact that she was easy picking says her life was sad. Oh well, take my upvote and make something happy bloody next time. Also, no it doesn't. It says she was horny.
Yeah, exactly, and you don't need to be sad to be horny. I just often happen to be both by pure coincidence.
This one was the one that really stressed me out. I sent this one to you when I first saw it. This definitely deepens my hesitation / fear of ever visiting a fucking bar in my life or letting strangers buy me drinks from a bar or even non-alcoholic drinks. I have seen too many horror stories, real and fictional, but I guess I have a higher chance of survival. I have 2 thoughts on that. 1, do you think this is going to happen to you? Do you think there are werewolves and vampires at the bar? 2, it's actually very dangerous to convince yourself that because you're like paranoid and aware of like the tropes that you are somehow safe from experiencing violence, like on a very like serious real note. Like that's a really bad idea to like fall into that fallacy. It also is like tiptoeing up to victim blaming. And then, yeah, they're monsters, cowardice ones at that, have to go for easy pickings when they should be capable of going after actually bad people. I know they're meant to be portrayed as morally gray at best, but I do hope they get what's coming to them. There's some really carceral thinking in this comment section.
Yeah, people really want these cartoon women annihilated for eating another cartoon woman.
The influence of the prison industrial complex looms large, earnestly, because like people frames like their approaches to things in such an explicitly punitive way. It's very fascinating.
It really is. And the other one being the people really want the characters in this very simple like setup payoff joke format to become sort of Vor Dexter and exclusively go after bad people, which, by the way, leads to this kind of next clutch of them, where, to my mind, it really begins to get a little bit tasteless when we are getting comments like, man, go eat ice agents or something, or, I mean, hunting at a gay bar, which I assume this is legit fucked, dog. Can't you find a list of sex offenders or something? And there is going to be more like this. And let me make it clear that obviously we are no friends of ICE or sex offenders here on the Warner channel. But, like, what a deeply serious thing to evoke.
Yeah, and, like, also, I've talked about this, I'm sure, on this channel and also just in general to you. I get very resentful of this sort of insistence that people have on the internet that, like, every piece of art be a morality play.
Yeah, it's such a, like, silly way to think, especially when it is something that is clearly such a, like, one-and-done comic. Like, you would think that Beanie Girl had existed for, like, the better part of a novel. You know, we've lived with her, we've loved with her, we've cried with her before she was struck down in her prime. She existed for 2 panels. And there was no dialogue.
No, literally, it's not like she said, wow, thanks for the drink, I got laid off today and I've had a really hard time because my girlfriend left me.
The whole thing, I think we kind of joked off mic of, like, an additional panel where she, like, calls her mom and is like, hey, Mom, I hope chemo went well today. I just wanted to tell you, I think I've finally met some people. Maybe the hard spot of my life is at an end. Like, there are so many people writing fanfic here.
Because that would be genuinely, like, bad taste. That would, like, really genuinely make me sad. And I feel bad. I'm not trying to begrudge anyone who had a, like, genuine, like, feeling of sadness looking at it because, you know, art affects people different ways. The first kind of batch of people are not people I really hold it against, even though they baffle me. We're about to start to get into the people that I genuinely am very bothered by.
Yeah, like, we have this baffling one next that says, as much as I want to make a joke, this is unfortunately a sad reality.
What do you mean?
My cousin was eaten by gay werewolves and vampires last week. Do not laugh about this.
What do you mean?
It's so nuts. There's another one on this same screen cap that says, man, if they're gonna eat people, why the cute, shy lesbian? Why not the creeps grinding on girls at the club with no permission? It's again, the Vor Dexter phenomenon strikes again of because this isn't a bizarre, like, justice porn comic, and something that we will have all the more ammo to see and sort of be baffled by as we get further in, is people seeming to think that it is, like, praxis to draw cartoons of bad people getting eaten, like that will change anything in real life. I made the comparison the other day of, it's like, I'm really sorry that your house burnt down. I drew this little comic of my OC putting out the fire.
Literally, this next one is the full-blown fanfic.
Give it to me, I'm ready.
Living with self-image issue. After years of self-loathing, you finally talk yourself into going out and meeting people. You get a drink from a cute couple and think to yourself that you were foolish for hating yourself for so long. As you die a horrible death, you think to yourself that you were right, nobody would ever love you. It only makes sense somebody would take advantage of your desire to be loved.
I don't want to sound cruel, because,
No.
like you said, Addison, art can evoke feelings in people. I think that's a genuinely wonderful thing about it, and we often say on this channel that it is an awesome thing when people open themselves to art in this way. But
Yes.
it is so bizarre to see people nakedly projecting what is clearly, like, deep pain in their soul onto this comic.
Also, I'm not saying it's a great punchline. Like I said, I actually didn't have any strong feelings about this comic at all. It was just seeing such an extreme response that got me so fascinated. The punchline of the comic is the "Are we monsters" bit. Like, you can't, that line doesn't work if they did something ethically good in the comic.
Exactly.
Because the joke is monsters, because they're literal monsters, but also monsters like, are we bad people? That's the whole joke.
Yeah, it's a swerve and, like, a little bit of wordplay, and it leads to comments like this next one, which will date this depending on when you're watching it. Or at least I hope it'll date it. There's an all-you-can-eat buffet of piece of shit people in Minnesota, and you kill the down-on-her-luck butch lesbian? Seriously? Hey, we don't know this fictitious woman was down on her luck. There is so much of people just looking at this character and being like, oh, she is giving me mad loser vibes, which is bizarre in and of itself. But also,
Yeah.
I cannot stress enough the horrific systemic injustices going on in the world today feel so cheapened by people trying to apply that to their feelings on this comedy webcomic, and extra bizarre given that we went and checked out Moy Hiram's website and found out that they're Mexican. So they might not even have their finger to the pulse of American issues, because everyone in the world actually kind of has their own problems.
Yeah, not everybody lives in America, first of all. Second of all, I think it would be so much worse taste. Maybe this is my personal preference, but I feel like it would be so much, like, in so much worse taste to be like, I drew my, like, fun, evil lesbian OCs eating ice agents in Minnesota. Do you all feel better now?
Yeah, it's pure escapism rather than anything that could actually help, like, the victims of ICE, or the victims of sex offenders, or one particular sex offender who we'll be getting to a little bit later. But
Yeah.
to get into more of these comments, and some of them will be on the screen in these
This
clusters.
comparison.
Oh, yeah. So someone said, makes me think of the episode of Full Metal Alchemist with the dog. Ugh, talk about fucked up. If you know what episode they're talking about.
Yeah, if you don't already know, it involves spending a large amount of time with a little girl, like a child character, that bonds with the protagonist, only for her to be, like, the victim of a horrifically unethical scientific experiment conducted by her father that results in her incredible suffering and eventual death.
Yeah, so quite a bit different to a 4-panel comedy webcomic, suffice to say. Like, the fact that these are even being compared is so wild. Another one here, a double barrel one of classic serial killer technique of hunting gay people, and then underneath, this is what Dahmer did, by the way. And we're going to have a little lightning round that'll be appearing on screen right now. Multiple people invoking Jeffrey Dahmer, and I hope I don't need to tell the people watching this, who I'm going to assume are, like, cool, media literate, socially aware people, that it is in immensely poor taste to be invoking the case of a real-life serial murderer who killed multiple queer men of color in a horrific and atrocious murder spree.
It is so fucked up to be like, this webcomic is just like Jeffrey Dahmer.
And the fact that so many people came to the same conclusion and upvoted those comments, here are some more. Another person illustrating that whole carceral punitive mindset thing says, hope someone draws a comic of these two getting flayed by a monster hunter, which it's so fascinating to me, all the people who, like, some are like, it is so disturbing, and we'll get into some of these in a sec, it is so disturbing that in this day and age, you would play, like, the death of a queer woman for comedy, and then other people being like, yeah, it makes me feel so bad, I want to see two other queer women horrifically mutilated to make me feel better.
It is so jarring to see people be that upset about it and then be like, anyway, I hope someone draws a really violent comic of these two queer women getting murdered as punishment for the thing I didn't like in the comic.
Some of these comments have people talking like Vulpus and Coulter from Fallout, like this one, literal monsters among us. They are to be purged for their transgressions against humanity.
Oh my god. I also am obsessed with the person who referred to this as uncensored gore.
That's so, like, it is like bits of red and a bone. It is
like a
borderline
cartoon bone.
Yeah, it is borderline something you would see in a cartoon. I saw other people use the words gore porn here and on X. Like, that is so crazy. Again, it's like maybe we are just completely sick in the head, utterly desensitized people, but it just feels like such a leap.
And there's a screenshot you got that references this and is a take that I agree with, but it's like, people are always like, oh, I love evil lesbians, I love queer villains, I love seeing women I love women's wrongs, unless the queer women are doing evil to another queer woman in a 4-panel comic, I guess.
This is something that people who are familiar with us and who are fans of this channel will be aware. We have a little bit of artistic skin in the game on this because obviously we are the co-creators of an audio drama called Kill Jam Triple X. Could you tell them why that's relevant, Addison?
Because Kill Jam Triple X is a show with an almost, I think, actually entirely queer main cast of characters that is in a dystopian future centered around a blood sport. So there are quite a lot of queer people experiencing and doing violence.
Yeah, like, and it is very specifically an all-women blood sport as well. So
yes.
There are constant, crazy, over-the-top, sort of, like, monstery queer characters, including the main one, Faustina Fetamine, played by Addison, who are constantly killing each other, but it's a case of, it doesn't really fall into bury your gays when everyone is gay, including the people doing the burying.
It was making me also feel crazy as a person who enjoys, like, vampire media especially, because it's like, vampire, like, seducing a lonely person and then killing them and eating their, like, drinking their blood is, like, one of the most classic tropes of that entire subgenre. Why are we acting like this is, like, some sort of never-before-crossed line?
It's genuinely so peculiar, and you see a lot of comments that are evoking this sort of idea of, like, now in particular is like an inappropriate time to be doing this. Like, this one person here says, I'm still not over this piece of shit comic. Like, seriously, with everything going on right now, you thought this was the time to post a punchline about a gay girl being abducted, murdered, and cannibalized. What the actual fuck is wrong with you? Which, again, the way all of this is being described, I invite you to just look at the original comic again. We'll post a link to the Reddit posting in the description of this. Look at this, and then look at the way people are describing it. You would think it was like Martyrs, or like a Serbian film or something.
You would think it was a snuff film. It is wild.
Like, it is such a kind of, like, cute art style.
I do have a theory that part of why people are reacting so strongly to it is because the art style is cute, whereas I think the artist was maybe trying to cash in on the sort of dissonance between the art style and the subject matter. I think a lot of people saw the cute art style and then felt very betrayed by the fact that it was something not good. I'm about to invoke something I haven't thought about in a really long time, Henry. Do you remember something called Happy Tree Friends?
Yes, it's a very similar scenario, and I think...
Except that Happy Tree Friends actually had gore in it.
Yeah, it did, and, like, very kind of mean-spirited, like, sort of itchy and scratchy type gore. And I think it's
Yeah.
another thing to invoke stuff we've discussed on this channel. We did a video talking about Bora Bora Honeymoon not so long
Yeah.
ago, which was a kind of like semi-infamous animated short film that is like a vor fetish movie that was done in a very kind of Disney-esque style because the
Hmm.
dude who created it was an ex-Disney animator, and it created this like big sort of firestorm of like, you can't do this in this style, which is such a like weirdly reactionary and conservative like aesthetic policing approach, and we're seeing that same thing here.
I'm so fascinated with this there were 2 comments in a row that you sent me that you screenshot over. It was a reasonable comment that said, to the people complaining it's a comic with monsters, they eat all kinds of people, I'm assuming. Not every character is going to be an anti-hero and make you have good feelings. Some are just bad people and do bad things. This comic has a dark twist and I'm here for it. This artist actually took a chance and it was funny because it subverted our expectations. Can't wait to see what else they come up with. And then the reply is, I feel like with the topics it's using, it's wildly misplaced with everything going on in the world right now. If I didn't know about what this artist normally does, I would see the joke being the murder of an innocent queer person and think they were someone hateful writing some murder fantasy. Plus, I do feel there's honest criticism to be said with how dark and familiar this feels, what with the news regarding the recent murders ICE has done to people the past couple weeks. Also, it's rather gory to not have a warning.
It's not! It's not! And then they say, sure, there's no direct body, but there's a whole series of blood and a bone that very clearly came from a character that was just established as relatable and likable. She didn't have a line!
She didn't say anything!
This is just sort of a bizarre little video about a bizarre little internet anomaly, because I think me and Addison were both so deeply fascinated that something that to us was such a kind of see it, do a breathe through the nose laugh, and keep scrolling type comic just happened to become this, like, Pandora's box of just every deranged, like, horror and anger and real life, like, awful nightmare thing would be imposed upon it.
I have a degree of empathy because I understand, as a member of the queer community, shit is really scary right now. And I understand feeling really on edge and being very, like, kind of a really, like, hair trigger about anything that reminds you of how scary it is right now to be a queer person. But, like, I feel like the responses to this feel like it's just, you would think from reading these comments that it's a comic about, like, a person experiencing a homophobic hate crime.
Yeah, you would think it's a very, like, Mark Millar type edgelord torture porn comic.
It's just, like, also, you know, we'll discuss this, like, again, I have no specific strong feelings about the artist, but as we looked into them, this is a person who exclusively draws queer women. Pretty much.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of
So it's not
really...
like they, like, randomly decided to do that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, like, really bad faith criticism, including these, like, weird concerted hate mobs that we saw in a subreddit that we're not going to name because they don't deserve the oxygen, but that turned out to be a real paradise for, like, radfem, biphobia, transphobia type stuff, that were, like, making a huge number of assumptions about Moy Hiram and, like, organizing these kind of, like, concerted hate mobs that, like, I am never going to understand the psychology of a person who thinks that this comic is ontologically evil, but threatening an artist isn't.
The kind of person who thinks that this comic is a bridge too far, but it's not bad to say stuff like we should check this person's hard drive and, like, we should call the police on them and, like,
and they should go to therapy.
Yeah, and, like, that one's less threatening to me, but the first 2 things are essentially, like, you're implying that you want, like, legal action taken against this person, and, like, I'll say it, that is way more bad taste in this current moment where, like, we are seeing federal agents enact senseless violence against people.
It's something where the irony seems to be lost on a lot of these commenters, and I will say, in a thing that is slightly more funny on the absurd end, there have been multiple kind of, like, fan sequel comics where either like the kind of beanie girl goes like Super Saiyan and is revealed it's just like her arm that's been eaten. Another one where, in a clear allusion to a famous shot from One Piece, she like leans in and takes the beanie off the vampire girl's head and puts it back on. Like a whole bunch of these that will be on screen right now. There's like people on the Power Scaler subreddit. Like, how would you scale like awakened beanie girl? Like
And here's
this
the
has
thing.
become so absurd.
Awakened Beanie Girl is really funny to me. I also saw some comments on Twitter, the website formerly known as Twitter, and on the Reddit that were like on the more like neutral to positive side that were just basically like, I think it would be fun to see a sequel to this where the Beanie Girl is a ghost. And the variations on that were like where she's a ghost and haunts them, or where she's a ghost and they're a throuple.
Yeah, I mean, we are obviously all for that kind of like weird supernatural stuff. Previously, one of our flagship shows, Less is Morgue, was literally a sitcom about a lesbian ghost haunting a non-binary ghoul after that ghoul ate her dead body out of her grave, and like the two have become friends now. We are all here for like weird queer monster shenanigans,
Yeah,
which is
there's
why
also
it just seemed so odd that people would be so pissed off.
well, there's also this very weird thing, and again, I don't know this person's identity, but neither do any of the people commenting on it, where like there's this immediate assumption that this could not possibly be a queer woman or someone who is like genderqueer or in like the lesbian or like queer femme like space at all. And I don't know anything about this person. They just saw a name that reads male to them and then were like, this fucking man loves to draw queer women getting murdered.
Which is a super like gender essentialist
Yes.
way to think to begin with.
And also, like, again, I don't have strong feelings about their art, but like I did do a little like scroll through their archives just because I was curious. And no, most of their stuff is like very like kind of hashtag relatable, like dating like kind of rom-com comics.
Yeah, they have even said in the comments where they've sadly been forced to defend themselves over this, that out of the hundreds of comics they have written, people have only died in 4 of them, but the kind of very bad faith critics are posting all 4 and then framing it as though, like, and this is the tip of the iceberg, which is super disingenuous.
Yeah, and it's like, at the end of the day, like I said, it's not about the specific person, it's about kind of the weird experience that this was, the sort of like disarming experience of having kind of to reckon with how differently people are consuming art from you.
Yeah, it's really jarring, and I think, if we are going to talk in terms of what we should be doing, like, with everything going on right now, I would say it's time for solidarity. It's time to direct our energy and our frustrations into productive places, rather than going on these, like, bizarre little witch hunts that serve to do nothing other than, I guess, the kind of feed the sick thrill of, like, retribution, as misplaced as it is. But a second ago, I invoked the Pandora's box metaphor, and at the bottom of that box is hope. So,
yes,
allow us to now discuss a little bit of what we think is the kind of positive takeaway that we can have from the big gay monster girl Crashout of 2026. I think number one is that this is a reminder to all of us that even when art affects us in a really visceral way, the onus is always on us to interrogate our discomfort, interrogate our distress, and if it's something that really bothers you, message a friend and talk to them about it rather than immediately commenting.
Or like, and again, as I said, it's like commenting, thoughts and feelings is reasonable. It's just, I'm very troubled by what a kind of inherently conservative reactionary impulse it is to be made uncomfortable by a piece of art and then immediately be like, I want to punish the person who made this.
Yeah, that's a really bad mentality to have, and I think while that kind of tribalistic instinct does to some degree exist in all of us, it is our responsibility to notice when we're getting like that and pump the brakes. I will also say on top of that, just because it would be nice to, after us having to trawl through these immensely frustrating comment sections, to make a really nice one down below. If
Mm-hmm.
you feel differently to all of these, especially if you're a person from the queer community, especially if you're a queer woman,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see you commenting down there, sharing your 2 cents, sharing your own art, and to prove that you got this far in with the hashtag Monster Girls Gotta Eat.
Yeah. Well, also, I was gonna say, last thing is, as a person who's like not just specifically in the queer community, but like I hang out with a lot of like leather queers and like queer folks in the kink community. It was so jarring to see this many people respond like this when I feel like almost every single queer woman I know would see this and either be like, God, I wish that were me, or would be like, yeah, when me and my girlfriend go out and we eat people. Not that they literally do, but like, you know.
Who are we to judge?
Like these are the kind of queer women that like multiple people I can think of off the top of my head right now. If you're listening to this, you know who you are. That like when the movie Bones and All came out, we were talking and they were like, that's the most romantic movie I've ever seen in my life.
And I have a feeling that a lot of the wannabes here at Wanna Nation and whoever else this might reach will probably feel the same way. If you enjoy what we've done here and want to support us, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of stuff like this. If you want to see more homicidal, queer, crazy monster women, go check out our show, Killjown Triple X. It's here on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts.
Hell
And
yeah.
if you really do want to help people actually with all the awful stuff going on right now, we have put a link to the ACLU down in the description of this, who are running active cases both against the awful shit that ICE is doing and in favor of different queer community issues in these very embattled times. Believe us when we say that if you have a little bit of money, kicking it their way will do infinitely more good for the people affected by these issues than drawing a comic of monster girls eating bad people.
Or of them being like violently punished for their transgressions.
Neither of which are a great time, I would say. But yeah, donate to the ACLU, check out our stuff. Thank you so much for watching this. Hashtag Monster Girls Gotta Eat. Make yourself heard, you wonderful freakazoids down in the comments.
Call that girl dinner.